The House of Death, The Crimes of John Reginald Christie and the Tragedy of 10 Rillington Place. The house looked ordinary, a narrow building on a crowded London street, brick walls. Shared spaces, neighbors close enough to hear arguments through the walls, and footsteps on the stairs. Nothing about it suggested horror. Nothing about it suggested that behind one kitchen wall, and beneath the floorboards, bodies would lie hidden for years. For over a decade, a quiet, soft-spoken tenant moved through those halls unnoticed. He greeted neighbors politely. He kept to himself. He appeared helpful, even trustworthy. But inside that building, he committed a series of murders so disturbing that the case would eventually shake public trust in the justice system and help change the course of British legal history. This is the story of a killer who hid in plain sight and the innocent man who paid for his crimes. The man at the center of the story was John Reginald Christie, born in 1899. From early on, those who later studied his life described him as deeply troubled, insecure, withdrawn, and consumed by feelings of inadequacy. He struggled socially and professionally, drifting between jobs and identities, never quite establishing stability. As a young adult, he had brushes with the law involving theft and violence. He served time in prison more than once. Yet despite this criminal background, he repeatedly managed to rebuild a respectable appearance. He learned how to speak calmly, how to sound convincing, how to present himself as harmless. That skill, the ability to appear safe, would become one of his most dangerous weapons. By the late 1930s, Christie was married to his wife, Ethel, and the couple moved into the ground floor flat of a West London address that would later become infamous, 10 Rillington Place in Notting Hill. It was a divided property with multiple tenants, shared facilities, and constant movement in and out. Privacy was limited, but anonymity was easy. Christie understood how to disappear socially while remaining physically present. He blended into the background of daily life. During World War II, he briefly served as a special police constable, a position that added an extra layer of credibility to his image. To neighbors, he seemed informed and authoritative. Few knew about his prior convictions. Fewer still suspected his fantasies of domination and violence. Then, in the early 1940s, those fantasies turned into action. His first known victim was a woman he met through local connections, a foreign national working in wartime London. He invited her to his flat under friendly pretenses. Inside, he assaulted and strangled her. Afterward, he concealed her body in the garden behind the building. The murder went unnoticed. There was no immediate investigation, no alarm, no missing person report that triggered a search of the property. The city was overwhelmed by war, shortages, displacement, and death. One missing woman did not bring attention to a quiet tenant in a crowded neighborhood. Christie learned something critical from that first killing. He could get away with it. Roughly a year later, he killed again. This time, he refined his method. He told his victim he could help treat her respiratory problems using a special gas remedy. He rigged a device connected to the domestic gas supply, allowing fumes to fill a small enclosed space. When she grew weak and disoriented, he strangled her. Again, he buried the body on the property. The pattern was forming: deception, incapacitation, strangulation, concealment, and still, no one suspected him. Years passed, tenants came and went, wartime London shifted into post-war hardship, housing shortages forced families into cramped living arrangements. One such family arrived in the late 1940s, a young couple with a child struggling financially and emotionally. Their names were Timothy Evans and Beryl Evans. They moved into an upstairs flat in the same building. Their marriage was strained, money was tight, arguments were frequent and sometimes loud enough for neighbors to hear. Christie, living below them, observed everything. He presented himself as supportive and knowledgeable. He offered advice. He listened. He gained their trust. When Beryl became pregnant again, the couple panicked. They could barely support themselves and their infant daughter, Geraldine Evans. According to later testimony, Christie told them he knew someone who could perform a safe, discreet abortion, illegal at the time, and implied he had medical experience. It was a lie. One day, Beryl went downstairs to Christie's flat. She never came back alive. Evidence later indicated that Christie used gas to render her unconscious and then strangled her. Soon after, the baby Geraldine was also killed. Their bodies were hidden in an outdoor wash house on the property. But instead of Christie being suspected, attention turned to Timothy Evans. Confused, frightened, and inconsistent in his statements to police, Evans first accused Christie, then retracted, then confessed, then changed his story again. Investigators interpreted his contradictions as guilt rather than distress. Christie testified against him, presenting himself as a cooperative, credible witness. The trial was swift. The jury deliberated for less than an hour. Timothy Evans was convicted and executed. The real killer returned home and continued his life downstairs. That wrongful execution would later become one of the most infamous miscarriages of justice in British history. But at the time, few questioned the verdict. Christie had fooled police, neighbors, and a courtroom. Emboldened, he escalated. In the early 1950s, his crimes intensified in frequency and brutality. He began targeting vulnerable women, often those facing housing insecurity or personal hardship. He offered shelter, assistance, or companionship. Once inside his flat, he used the same gas method to weaken them before strangling them. But now, instead of the garden, he began hiding bodies inside the building itself. Behind a kitchen alcove wall, he created a concealed space. He placed victims there and sealed the opening with wallpaper and boards. The room remained in daily use, meals cooked just feet away from hidden remains. The proximity didn't stop him. It seemed to empower him. Then came an even more shocking act. He murdered his own wife. Ethel Christie had lived beside him for years, apparently unaware, or perhaps suspicious but silent. One night, he strangled her in their bed. He later hid her body beneath the floorboards of the living room. Neighbors noticed she was gone. Christie claimed she had gone to visit relatives. No one verified the story. By 1953, Christie's behavior began to unravel. He lost his job, he fell behind on rent, he appeared thinner, more agitated. The careful mask was cracking. He abruptly moved out, leaving the property to new tenants. That decision exposed everything. While making a small repair in the kitchen, a new occupant removed a section of wallpaper near a recessed space. Behind it, he saw something impossible. Human remains stacked in darkness. Police were called. This time, the search was thorough. Investigators opened walls, lifted floorboards, and dug up the garden. They discovered multiple bodies, hidden in compartments, buried outside, concealed beneath living space. The scale of the crimes became undeniable. The address transformed overnight from ordinary residence to national horror site. A manhunt began immediately. Christie had not fled far. Days later, he was recognized wandering near a London bridge. He gave a false name, but officers grew suspicious and detained him. When his identity was confirmed, the case broke open. Under questioning, he confessed to multiple murders, including those previously attributed to Timothy Evans. The truth arrived too late for the man already executed. At trial, Christie attempted to claim insanity. Psychiatrists evaluated him extensively. He was found disturbed, but legally sane, aware of his actions, and capable of controlling them. The court rejected his defense. He was convicted and sentenced to death. In a grim twist of fate, he was executed at the same prison where Timothy Evans had been hanged just 3 years earlier. Public reaction was intense. Questions erupted. How had police missed the earlier bodies? How had Christie's testimony been accepted without deeper scrutiny? How had an innocent man been executed while the true killer lived steps away? Investigations followed. Reviews of evidence exposed serious failures, investigative tunnel vision, over-reliance on confession, and misplaced credibility judgments. Years later, Timothy Evans received a posthumous pardon. His case became a central argument in debates that eventually led to the abolition of the death penalty in the United Kingdom. The building itself did not survive the legacy. The structure at 10 Rillington Place was eventually demolished, along with parts of the surrounding row. The address was erased, but the story remained, studied in criminology, law, and psychology as a warning. The case revealed how predators can weaponize normalcy, how authority can be mimicked, how confidence can override doubt, and how justice systems can fail when assumptions replace verification. Christie never fit the popular image of a monster. He was quiet, controlled, soft-spoken. That was precisely why he succeeded for so long. The most dangerous disguise is often the most ordinary one, and in that small London house, hidden behind wallpaper and beneath floorboards, evil lived undetected until chance finally opened the wall. If you made it to the end and you enjoyed this story, take a second to support the channel. Tap like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next suspense-filled true crime deep dive. Your support directly helps more carefully researched cases like this get told. If you found the case especially gripping, share the video with another true crime fan and drop a comment with the next story you'd like to see covered. There's always another mystery waiting, and you won't want to miss it.